David,
Yes.
you're not
Clyde.
Marty.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not Marty. Welcome to the Marty and
Well, I am
Clyde show.
today. Yeah.
Yes, Marty couldn't make it because he's out in the bush, which is something that you're normally doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he's out in the bush. He's got things going on pre-planned. So we decided I asked the audience. I said who should come on and fill in for Marty this Wednesday, and unanimously it was the entire chat blew up and they said moose, 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 moose. It was everywhere. So I gave you a ring, and here you are. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Out of the bush and on the podcast here.
Out of the bush, and that's
Yeah,
something that I didn't know about you. You actually spend that much time in the bush. It's crazy.
Yeah, I just went bushwhacking up. There's a peak kind of near Virgin Falls, which is out near Tofino, on the weekend. I had a buddy said it was not too bad. He'd been up there once before, so my girlfriend and we went up with him. It was absolute hell. It was
hell.
Yeah. And that's saying something because I do a lot of stuff with him, and that one was really bad. We're talking about 4 kilometers of distance with 350 meters of elevation gain, and it took us 9 hours.
9 hours.
On an average hike that distance, you could probably go up and down an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Oh, max. Wow.
So
it's just technical.
Yeah, climbing over trees and like climbing up steep walls and throwing ropes and climbing up stuff, like pretty serious business.
Wow, brutal. How was the weather like, though? That's always the question. This time of year is kind of iffy. It's all over the place.
It was 26 degrees. We got on top and absolutely just melting up there. We were all pretty grumpy and exhausted, but you got to bag the peak. You're climbing up there, and it's fall summit after fall summit. It was just brutal. But so I actually did film that one. It'll be out on my hiking channel and probably next year at some point. I'm so bad at uploading those, but.
Oh, fair enough. Because you're so busy. You've got so much going on your main channel, Moose on the Loose.
Yeah, that's the priorities, Moose. So
priorities, Moose. So let's get into it. Well, where do we start? Where do we start? Indeed, I think let's talk about Canada Day, because we just went through Canada Day, and everyone's kind of like, where are we in Canada at this point? So many years in a row we've had people telling us, well, we're not going to do Canada Day because of COVID, and then COVID's over, and they're like, yeah, well, we're not going to do Canada Day because we're, I don't know, colonists and we're guilty about it. and now they want to do Canada Day again. They're really excited about it. Except they're doing it on a different sort of there's no other way to explain this except this article. Canadians reclaim maple flag amid Trump threats. I don't even. And you want to, like, you can draw your conclusions, but of course, it really is what you think it is. When you read down into the article, reclaimed flag, one of the clearest signs of this shift of this maple leaf flag, once seen by some as a symbol co-opted by the Freedom Convoy movement. The flag is now being embraced by a broader group of Canadians. The elbows up crowd, apparently. Is
that because we're in a crisis, or?
I think I think that's what it is.
Carney said that in his speech the other day. We're in a crisis during his Canada Day speech. If you look at what Pierre Poilievre posted, he was just looking at the, honoring the history and, our forefathers and stuff, and the WW2 event and all that. And then Carney's just the same nonsense that he did during the election. We're in a crisis.
Well, I thought he was going to fix the crisis.
Well, he said he's not good in crisis. So does he really want the crisis to go away?
Well, that's it. The whole idea is if there's a crisis and then the government gets more powers out of the crisis, well, they're just going to invent new crises all the time.
Yeah.
It really comes down to it. Now, so over the weekend, we got a bit of an embarrassment. We were told that elbows up, this guy's going to come into office and he's going to tell Trump what for. That's where we're going. We're going tough. And not only are we going tough, we're going to do it dirty. We're going to openly tell people we're dirty with those elbows up, that hockey thing that you're not supposed to do, because that's bad behavior in a game.
Their entire campaign is based on dirty tactics in hockey. You can cause brain damage to someone.
Wow. Okay, so that's a great image for Canadians.
Yeah, that's what their campaign's based on.
So that's not what we got. So what we got was a completely different story, and it's become a national embarrassment, especially after this weekend. So the digital service tax was the thing that was coming in, And of course, many of us disagree with the digital service tax. We wouldn't want that. It costs us money. Actually,
Yeah.
the Canadians that are, this is put on us, but it's also going to cost online platforms a ton of money. YouTubers like you and I operating out of Canada, this would not be any benefit to us. This would be a detriment to us. And many people railing against it, but the Liberals put it through under Justin Trudeau anyway. And this is something that was set to come in. And Carney, even though they had their talks in the G7, off the table, no, it's still going through. Well, Donald Trump said, no, we're not putting up with that. And the result was, well, this. I love this. This is what's her name again? Carolyn Levitt.
Carolyn, yeah.
She's lovely, but she's definitely snarky. I love the way she brings this forward. Here's her clip.
First, what's the president's reaction to this? Can you tell us more about his call with Prime Minister Carney over the weekend? How did he get Carney to drop it? And also, what's the impact on American tech companies given this latest progress, as the president says he has been fighting for American tech companies?
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax that would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the prime minister, and the prime minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a bbig victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
And on Harvard.
So it's become this giant embarrassment now. Like all the tough talk, it's all fizzled away. We're not tough. We're not doing any of this stuff. And it's becoming really clear that Canada doesn't have any real position.
No.
If the United States wants to do something, they're just going to go ahead and do it. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look at Donald Trump. The guy obviously knows how to negotiate. He wrote a whole book on it, and he's in charge of the most powerful country in the world. So, as I've said on my channel, I think that Carney should have put together a package, something that he couldn't refuse, something that was so good, more than he was expecting to get, and then have some maybe a couple more concessions that he was planning to give up, but make it just something that he couldn't refuse. But instead, he's playing this game with, dragging things out. And as I just posted yesterday or this morning, the if you can show my chart, the DST,
yeah, for sure.
That whole DST, it's clear that so where are we here? So all the tech companies here, if you look at the flags, I mean, there's some brand new ones here. You've got India, Sweden, Brazil, and France. But a lot of these other ones that Brookfield owns, this is a chart of, if anyone's not familiar, you've got Brookfield Asset Management. Here's all their companies that are
This
involved.
is the chart. This is the moose chart for anybody who... This is the famous moose chart that, everyone's dying to get their hands on.
So you can see they have a whole bunch of tech-involved companies, in different capacities. They just bought this one the other week on, I believe it was June 14th.
So this is all Brookfield Holdings. This is what they
or ones they're like half owners of or whatever it may be. But
okay,
if you just see all the American flags, not to mention the Liberals, just what was it back the end of December, they did this 25-year contract with all these big tech companies. You think Carney's gonna put this tech tax on these companies that they just did this deal with that would affect his stock options? I don't think so. Like once I started digging into this, because before I didn't have the countries mapped out, and once I put it on there, it was just quite obvious. Not to mention they have this other fund over here, this technology fund. They're just so integrated with American tech. It makes no sense that Carney would keep that tax because it would hurt his own profits. So he shouldn't be prime minister. He shouldn't even have, they should be forced to sell all their stocks to be prime minister. It's absolutely absurd.
Well, when's the deadline for him to, get out of his financial holdings that he currently has?
Well, they just go into a blind trust, and then it's just a trust me, bro situation.
Well, yeah, because he could have one of his buddies keeping an eye on it and doing all of his biddings, or even keeping an eye on it himself.
Well, so apparently once they do disclose it, I believe it's 120 days, so it should be coming soon. I haven't been tracking the exact dates on that, but once it does come, we will know who his blind trustee is.
so then I can dig into that and see like, okay, is this a Goldman Sachs buddy that's somehow, connected in this web somewhere here? Or is it someone who's, not connected to him? But either way, it's ridiculous that he knows what's in there and we don't know what's in there.
So now we have this thing from the left that's coming out and saying this is 136D chess that he's playing right now, and this is his strategy. He's got a whole negotiation strategy he's working on.
Last night I had a good conversation with President Trump, and we agreed to recommence our negotiations with a view to the 21st of July deadline that we had agreed in. Kananaskis, Minister Champagne and LeBlanc had conversations with their counterparts as well. We've restarted the discussions this morning.
Did you get anything in exchange for?
We have, to be clear, it's part of a bigger negotiation. It's something that we expected in the broader sense that would be part of a final deal. We're making progress towards a final deal. There's more to be done, to be clear. And as I just said, which answers the translation question, as I just said, is a question of timing in terms of the date for the final negotiations and when the tax was coming into effect. And, it doesn't make sense to collect tax from people and then remit them back. So it provides some certainty. And as I just said, the negotiations have restarted. We're going to focus on getting the best deal for Canadians. We're making progress. There's more to do, and we'll keep you updated.
And that's it. This is a big power move, man. This is what he's going for. He knows what's up. It wasn't a concession. He's really playing the game.
I mean, if you look at what he was saying that there. His body language, he wasn't looking the reporter in the eyes. He was scanning down. He's looking for an out. That's when somebody's like really nervous about that and they don't want to interact with the person they're talking to. They're looking for an out of the room, somewhere to get their eyes out. So he's not really, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't look like he's trying to get a deal. That's why I'm starting to kick around the idea, was he planted there by America to make a worse deal for us and a better deal for them? That's why Trump helped him get in.
Well, see, I don't know if that's the case. Like America doesn't, obviously America doesn't like what he's doing, or who he is. So, but that's, I do think that you're onto something there. Like if Trump looked at it this way, if Carney's in, it would be so much easier to take advantage of Canada because they're going to make themselves look bad to Americans. Hear me out. Pierre Poilievre gets in. And he's like more friendly. He's more friendly to like American interests, what the Republicans want to do. Not necessarily like in their back pocket or anything like that. But he would be tougher to pit Americans against, if you get what I'm saying. So right now, Canada has like the worst reputation in the United States right now. We're known for booing their anthems and banning alcohol sales from our liquor stores and doing all this stuff.
400% tariffs on dairy.
Well, I was getting there. but some really unfair practices, and not only that, some like schmarmy behavior that goes along with it. This pompous behavior, like we're better than you. Look at us, and it's turning into a situation where now I'm seeing on online media some people calling for outright boycotts of Canadian products, like making TikTok videos listing these are the Canadian products that I know of. Don't buy these products. Like it's a serious thing, and that's bad news. Now, when the American psyche is looking at it that way, Trump has all opportunity to come in and make a move, and they don't feel bad about it. But if we had leadership that was trying to be friendly, there might be a bit of a different mood in that scenario. You know what I'm saying there?
Well, I just there was a story the other day that showed that First Nations who run like hunting and fishing tours and nature walks and stuff, they have 35% of their business that comes from America, and now it's dropped off a cliff. That can only be getting worse because Carney's saying the relationship's over, we're going to Europe, like that whole stuff. Versus saying we want to make a deal, we like America. He's not saying that stuff. So.
Well, here's the thing too, like Europe, England, our oldest trading partner, which happens to be in Europe. Last year in January of 2024, they walked away from the negotiation table on what grounds? dairy tariffs. It was the
Yeah.
dairy tariffs because we wouldn't budge on them that they walked away from the negotiation table. And now all this time later, a year and a half later, we have Donald Trump doing exactly the same thing. And here's the news clip from Fox News, him talking about it.
You said you're stopping all trade discussions with Canada?
Until such time as they drop certain taxes, yeah.
The digital
People
services
don't realize
tax.
Canada is very nasty to deal with. They've charged our farmers up to 400%, almost 400% on certain products and certain, things. Our farmers want to send it, they have to pay 200, 300, 400%. People don't know that. Canada is a very tough country to deal with. I will say that.
But
And I love Canada.
you have USMCA in place.
I know, but
You'll have to deal with it.
USMCA is no good if they cheat.
What does that mean?
Well, there's been things going on that we don't like, and things going on where they took advantage. And hopefully, we'll be fine with Canada. I love Canada. Frankly, Canada should be the 51st state. Okay, it really should.
There it is again.
There it
Canada
is.
relies entirely on the United States. We don't rely on Canada. Actually.
And that's true. Canada relies entirely on the United States. America doesn't rely on Canada. That's not something they're not worried about that. But I think it's at the end of the day, it comes down to a principled thing. Really, you're gonna put on these kinds of tariffs and then codify them into law. So this is the thing that really irked me the most, I think, in the past few weeks. The Bill C5 was really, that bothered me, and it bothered me that the Conservatives went along with it. But this one
They
was
did gut
also
the bad parts of it though first.
Yeah, so I'm showing the wrong bill here. I should be showing 202. This is S206. Well, that's a different story. We can get into that too. Bill C202, was the bill to codify into law the dairy lobby. So that, global affairs, Carney, nobody can come in and negotiate that. It's off the table. It's off limits. Now, if Trump came in, and right now it seems like things are smoothing out because they got rid of the DST, the digital service tax.
Yeah.
But what if he was to pull a power move and say, no, you're going to get rid of the dairy lobby? Like, that's it. Those tariffs are over, or no trade talks. What does that scenario look like?
Yeah, so iPolitics just wrote an article on it that was quite good, talking about that. They're convinced that Trump's going to use that as negotiating leverage to get critical minerals and critical resources, that kind of stuff, at cheaper prices, or they basically say for something else. But we mentioned, or it's been mentioned before, that the critical resources, having continual access to our cheap oil versus us sending it around the world and getting full price for it, is probably what they want, as well as critical minerals they need. I believe it's like 30 pounds of critical minerals for just one F-35 plane. So it's like quite a few pounds of that stuff, and the night vision goggles and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, right.
They don't want to be dealing with trying to, get that as, from Ukraine or some other country. They're going to do that regardless, but they would rather have easy access right above them versus trying to go to somewhere else in the world and deal with that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trump uses that to, lock that in. But also, I believe it was in the National Post, they had a different opinion, thinking that Trump is going to force this to the point where the dairy tariffs will be taken away. So it's kind of a gamble at this point, how much he wants to push on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, because if the dairy cartel has so much sway, like, we know that they'll make and break politicians. Maxime Bernier doesn't have a career. Yeah, he doesn't have a career anymore because of them. And Andrew Scheer, who was a relative nobody at the time, became the leader of the Conservatives because of them. And yeah, they have tremendous power in the country. So using that as a leverage point is actually really clever. It would be really clever to get other things, which of course would piss off everybody else in every other region, because they're getting their products discounted, across the international borders. It's similar to Alberta with the oil. They would be able to sell their oil at such higher prices if they were able to get to shore waters on either of the coasts, right?
Yeah.
But no, they have to sell it at like a 10% discount or whatever, a huge discount.
Yeah, I think it's about $18 a barrel. It's like $10 less a barrel, something like that.
Oh, that's way more than 10% discount. Yeah,
it's more. And no, it's like a 40% discount.
Yeah, that's incredible. And
Yeah, it is.
who suffers from that? Well, Alberta suffers from that, right?
Yeah. And not just
And
Alberta, it would hit, the auto industry, steel and aluminum, seafood, potash, canola. It's like, are we going to sacrifice, the rest of the country for 1% of GDP, which is what the dairy industry is in Canada? Are we going to, and I have people who push back in the comment section. I hear everyone, but it's just because some people saying that we need it in Canada, other dairy farmers saying we don't need it. So it's kind of hard to know exactly where that lies. But
yeah, see, I look at it this way: like, if the dairy farmers couldn't keep up without the dairy lobby, and Canada's market would still be full of dairy, well, doesn't that just economically tell you that they're doing the wrong job?
Yeah, well, I mean, the argument before was you've got to keep these family farms, but now it's like, well, there's I'm allergic to milk, so I don't know what the price is now, $8 for a liter or something. Like the price just keeps going up. Because I remember the last time I had dairy a while ago, you could buy a jug of a 2% milk, and it was like $2.50. So it's like, what happened to the prices? They just keep going up. So like, who's this really benefiting?
Well, that's the whole point. They have to dump it so that the prices don't go too low.
Yeah.
Because
I believe that farmer said 100,000 liters. There was that one video, 100,000 liters a month he dumps.
Yeah, there was a study that jumped up on the screen. So there was a study that came out, and the food professor, he put this one out. He didn't conduct a study. He posted about it on his X, and it was about a study that went in and found out just how much of this dairy had been dumped over the course of a decade. It was somewhere in the ballpark of like 2 billion liters.
It's just so sad. I mean, I had someone comment on my video today because I was talking about the dairy stuff, and they said they worked at a food bank, and it's such an insult to everyone who's there who, they need food, and there's just not enough food, and then they're dumping all of this out where they could be giving that for free. At the very least, it should be bottled up, and that bottling process may be paid for by the government and sent to food banks. At the very least.
Go to a plant where they condense it to canned milk. They turn it into, I don't know, baby formula, all kinds of things that can be done with it. But it's a racket. And the thing is, at the end of the day, if they can't do it in the free market, well, they shouldn't be doing milk anyway. Like that's just my sort of look at this. And people would say, well, it's not fair because American dairy producers are subsidized. Now, some are subsidized, and I would agree that that's not a fair practice that the taxpayer would of the United States would pay to subsidize the milk. But at the end of the day, if another country's taxpayer is paying us to have cheaper milk, is that a bad thing?
Yeah,
it's a bad thing for them. Like they're losing in that transaction.
Yeah, well, I mean, people in Canada, I've seen the argument is that their milk is tainted, it's got hormones, all that stuff. I believe it was Food Professor, somebody posted that it's only about 2% of their milk has hormones, and we could just outright ban that.
Well, that 2% is not used for human consumption.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even not used for human consumption. So it's not even like really a problem. It's just a statistic that someone put somewhere and it blew up, and now everyone, is just thinking like, oh, their milk's got hormones and you're going to grow a third arm or something if you drink it. So
now this would be a huge power move though if Trump were to actually want the dairy lobby gone. So if that was his motive and not to use it as a leverage thing against other industries, which I think is BS for those other industries, I feel sorry for the people that work in those regions because they're going to lose out over this. But if he uses this as a leverage tool, well, what does that mean? That would mean that, if they had to get rid of the dairy cartel and they had to get rid of supply management, that means they would have to go back to Parliament. Because I don't think the Governor General and Carney can do a fake executive order getting rid of Bill CO202. It's codified in law. They'd have to go through the actual process and bring back Parliament, wouldn't they?
They would, yeah, and they'd have to do that in the summertime. That's why it's like so interesting.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen with that.
I'm kind of hoping he does the power move because I'm so pissed that I have to go to work. I'm not getting a vacation. Why do they deserve a vacation? They say it's a crisis. They're saying that we're in the middle of a crisis, and they're like, but we'll get to that in the fall, folks.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll keep collecting our whatever $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 salaries and go on vacation for 2 months, essentially.
but
go
enjoy
into
the
their home
crisis in the meantime.
Yeah,
right?
but enjoy the crisis. How big of a crisis it is if they're not working through the summer. Everyone else is working through the summer.
Yeah, and we're all working all the time. In fact, I was just working. I flew out to Toronto just this past
Yeah.
weekend.
How
Did
was
you hear
it?
about that?
I did.
It was interesting. It was interesting to say the least. There was a bunch of us that went out. It was a lot of fun, and like we're all friends. Like you know all these people as
Yeah.
well. So Jasmine, Josh from Jasmine Lane, Josh from Elevate Podcast, Wyatt Claypool, Daniel Boardman. We all went out to this event that was happening in Toronto. Now, a little bit of a controversy spun around the thing, and that's where it became interesting. I guess people didn't know what was going on, so I can get into a little bit with what was happening. So I posted this out on X. I said I'll be in Toronto this weekend for the United Against Extremism National Security Conference. If you're in the area, get your tickets here. And the event tickets, I even gave the link so people could get their free tickets. They were free tickets. So if you missed out, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you missed out. But this was an interesting thing. It was put on by the Canada India Foundation, which is it's a foundation of I guess Indian expats and people who even grew up here in Canada of Indian origin, and they have their own group. And then TAFSIC, which is a similar group of conservative Jewish people that are concerned about things that are happening. Of course, immediately there's a ton of backlash saying like, "You've sold us out to the Indians and the Jews." Yeah. What was your thought when you first saw this? Because I didn't get that impression when I was invited to the event.
I was a little confused what was going on in the first place because I didn't realize who was putting it on. So I was just like wondering what is going on. Eventually, once I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. But it like doesn't, I don't know. I mean, are people looking for a reason to get angry for something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I think it was. I think some people are looking for a reason to get angry. They started looking into those two organizations and found like fine print here and there. Oh, I don't agree with that thing or this or that. Anyway, I'm going to end up having some of the people on that are part of these organizations just because people had some concern, and genuine concern deserves genuine discussion about these things. So I've got business cards. I've got Amir Epstein. He's the organization head of TAFSIC. So he'll be coming on the channel pretty soon. But here's the thing, what this was about, and this is why like the backlash was unwarranted. It was about unfettered immigration in Canada and how it's really been upsetting. Lots of bad things have been happening out of this unfettered immigration. And it's an interesting story because, for the longest time, East Indians have been known as like some of the model immigrants to come to Canada. You have like this huge country that has lots of educational infrastructure. They largely speak English in the business world over there because there's like 26 language, that kind of thing. And so when we had a good immigration system, people would be based on merit coming into the country, and they had a huge pool is the word I'm looking for, of people to choose from that had all of the things that ticked all the boxes of somebody that would be, eligible to come to our country. And because of that, it was always like, holy cow, yeah, you see somebody with Patel or Singh or something like that on a resume, you'd be like, wow, that guy came in, he's probably qualified for the job, right? And that for the longest time was that, as well as model citizens in behavior and all of that, the just great communities and all of this stuff. Now in recent times, unfettered immigration has done the opposite. It's brought in a lot of people with no skills, and it opened up the door to a lot of people with unsavory backgrounds and pasts and things like that.
I mean, look at the story that just came out today, 17,000 people that the Liberals let in without a background check. Literally,
yeah, that's
no background
right.
check. And largely most of those come from South Asia, from India. And so it's just changed the image. I used to work in the video game industry,
And you had a lot of people who came over from India and were gracious. They were very smart. They were always programmers. And I don't, for whatever reason, that's what's pushed over there. It was back then. So you really see a culture shift where everyone's blaming, when really it's like people were promised, the Liberals promised something to people coming from India and then didn't deliver on it. And then, we're at a point where it's like people are not going home. They're supposed to, they're protesting. And it doesn't look good because like you can't protest in our country if you're not a citizen, but the same token they're promised something and they were lied to. It's a real mess. The whole situation is a mess.
And the thing is, like, there's a lot of issues. And here's what some of the detractors, some of the people who are against this meeting, some people were against it for bad reasons, like they don't like Indians or Jews, and I'm not cool with that. But there were some people that had genuine questions, like, well, are they lobbying the government, trying to limit our free speech and things like that? So I was like, oh, I'll bring that to the event and I'll make sure that that's something that's addressed during the event. And actually, when I mentioned it, I mentioned the fact that when we're going after people that are doing bad things in our country, like protesting and actually, like, there's protesting, and then there's like being violent and breaking people's property and assaulting people. That's awful. And of course, there's already laws on the books to stop people from doing those things. So we don't need new laws for that. But also, when we're looking at different tactics for targeting some of this extremism, one of the main things to be concerned about would this eventually inflict on our right to free speech, right? So, and this is a huge concern, and rightfully so, because most of the time when there's a problem, the government comes to us with a solution, and that solution is always like, yeah, sure, let's just limit free speech. Let's we'll make it so that they're not allowed to have their free speech, and we could totally go after them for that. And it's like, no. We need to be vigilant about this. The free speech is a very important issue in society, and we should be able to express ourselves. But at the same time, we can't tolerate violence.
Yeah. We're seeing so much of it. I didn't put it on the channel. I always get in trouble when I show this stuff. But you saw that giant Palestinian flag in front of the Parliament building on Canada Day. Like, what is that?
What is it? It's provocation, really.
It makes your blood boil. It's like, this is Canada. Like, it's just unbelievable.
Well, I think that's what it's designed to do, right? It's designed to get people angry. And when you get people angry, they'll come out to tell you what for when you're doing your event, and that's exactly what they want. They want people to come out and they want violence in the streets, and that's why we gotta like get together and have discussions about how we can put an end to this. Now, for the Canadian India Foundation and TAFSIC, they were both concerned, and they said, how can we get more voices talking about this? So they reached out. They were actually thinking, like, should we get the media in here? We'll get CBC in here. We'll get CTV and those guys. And then one of their organizers like, no, we should get the independent media here.
Yeah, smart.
And that's what we did. So they invited us out, and we all came in. We did a panel of our own, and then we attended the event. And then there was interviews, and Rebel News was there, and everything went off without a hitch. It was great. And largely the takeaway that I got from the whole event was, this is a good move forward, because a lot of different communities in Canada are starting to recognize some serious problems in the country, and they're taking action. And when they're taking action and then also inviting other communities to come join, then that becomes a good thing. And one of the big themes of talking to people behind the scenes was, yeah, next time we do this, let's have the Chinese community out. Let's have the Anglo community out. Let's have any other communities that we can get to come and join this, make it bigger. Let's make a bigger tent, so we're having more conversations with more people, right?
Yeah, there was someone who's commenting the other day, I can't remember, it was maybe it was on X somewhere, saying like, the Filipino community, when have you ever heard of them causing a ruckus? They don't. They come here, they integrate very well with Canada. Everyone loves Filipinos. They're hardworking.
Absolutely.
Like, they're awesome, right? That would be another group. And if you look at it, basically every other, like, most of the different cultures don't block our streets. And just going back like 2 months ago, there was an ambulance that was trying to get through, and the protest was blocking the street. The cops turned the ambulance around as, you got to go around the protest.
And I never got a follow up on that story. I don't know if somebody, perished from that because an ambulance couldn't get to where it needs to go. I don't know if it was going to pick up someone or trying to get to the hospital. But when you have protests in our street blocking our infrastructure that we paid for, and it's just absurd. Like, the cops should be arresting and putting people in a jail, for 3 months, a year, or whatever it is. But they're protected. They're protected by the cops, and that's not surprised because you see the cops, doing those orientation videos, like trying to convince people to move to their, their following or whatever. I believe the Toronto police put that thing out. They had a couple of videos like that.
Did you see the provocations with is it like the Muslim prayers in the middle of downtown Toronto? That's like a big thing that they're doing right now.
That's been going on for a while now.
But you have like mosques everywhere. You're easily like accessible to. You go to your mosque, you can do that. You don't have to.
Even in the winter, they do that. The winter time, they're down in the snow.
Oh man, like it just seems like a provocation, and it doesn't make me want to say like you can't do that and we should limit free speech, but it does make me want to say like, come on, if you're not provoking people, then what is it that you're actually doing? So it would be good to have these conversations, like even invite them out.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of what you're doing?
Because it'd be different if it was in a park and they're just like, we really like to do this outside and connect with nature or whatever the reason is. But when it's in the city street in downtown Toronto and now ambulances can't go save people, we've got a real problem.
Absolutely. And it seems like a double standard for people that are getting arrested and dragged through the court system on for similar things. Yeah. So of course I'm referring to the people that were involved with the Freedom Convoy. Yeah. We heard just one of the boys from Coots was just let out, and I'm very happy to hear that. But they're not all of them. There's one man still in, and we still have Chris and Tamara still awaiting sentencing for a mischief charge. They're charged with being Dennis the Menace, and like they've been going like 3.5 years over this. It's ludicrous. It's really it sucks. It's hard to digest, man. I just feel bad about it.
Yeah, well, hundreds of thousands of dollars for what? Like, and if you look at comparative, I mean, what's worse? I mean, there's a lot of the stuff that I heard just the other day in the street. I can't repeat it. It's like literally calling for the end of people and take out this person, take out this person. It's like, it's absolutely nuts. In any other country, not any other time, there people go in there and round people up.
Well, that's not protected speech. You can't say that.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't utter death threats to people. That's not protected speech.
Nothing happens. There's no punishment in this country. That's the problem. There's no punishment to crime. I mean, there's that story the other day of 4 guys that broke into a house with hammers, and they kicked in the bedroom door, and the dad had a long pew pew with a double barrel pew pew, and it didn't have any projectiles in it, but he pointed it. And it's a risky move because if they had one, then they probably would have pew-pewed back at the guy. But they were only holding hammers, so they quickly ran out of there, and it was all caught on camera in the house.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
And it's like, even if these guys get captured, will they go to jail? We all know the answer is no. They'll be in there for a couple hours. They'll get bail, and they're out the door.
Well, there's the answer to that right there. Punishment for crimes is definitely an incentive to get people to not do crimes.
Yeah. I mean, it has to end somewhere. You can't just, I think there was a CTV story, I think, and they said just the next day, these guys hit someone else's house.
Same guys.
Yeah, the same guys, same hammers. It's a hammer gang. Like the Hammer Brothers running around smashing in doors and
they even stealing their hammers back. They
You need Mario to save us here.
So, and even when we do have a bit of justice, then there's public outcry to make sure that the justice doesn't prevail. So there's this case, Aaron Gunn brought this one up on Twitter. A very good way to get yourself deported from Canada is to not come here under false pretenses and then proceed to very publicly break our laws and cost hardworking taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. This is a guy who's being deported over climate activism. So he did some property damage while he was doing his climate activism while on a visa here, and he's being deported back to Pakistan. So I don't feel sorry for the guy. I really don't. No. What's your take?
Yeah, I don't either. I've been actually followed this story for a while now. And then they tried to get married and keep him here, and it didn't work. I mean, it comes down to it.
Oh, they tried visa fraud after?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure they were trying to get married or whatever. And I think she said she's going to move to Pakistan to be with him. That's why I believe. I mean, last I heard this was like a year ago. So I have seen this update that he is getting kicked out now. But I mean, if you look at what Trump just said yesterday, he said he wants to get rid of some American citizens because they're, criminals. And I was just thinking, well, what's the solution there? Like, because he wants to deport them too.
How would you do that? I don't know how that would work. Like once you're a citizen, you're a citizen. You're sworn in. You have a right. You have constitutionally protected rights.
I threw out a wild idea. I mean, I thought about this a while ago. This would stop crime. This would stop crime if you had, say, a guy like Robert Pickton. And I guess I should have clarified in the video. He's gone now. He was taken out at the end of 2024. But say if you had a guy like that in jail, say you traded that guy to North Korea for some innocent lady or some innocent guy in a work camp who has no criminal background. Canada gets one good person. We can trade two bad ones. They get two strong bodies to work. We get a good citizen. You would get people not committing crimes if you have that fear of getting sent to a North Korean work camp. Like maybe that's a big extreme, politicians aren't going to do that, but there has to be some sort of punishment where people are not going to commit crimes. I keep saying, they got to be in the jails. They should be working, and they should have a sliding scale based off of the crime. So like Pickton would be cleaning out sewers every day, and he has to do it 10 hours a day or doesn't get to eat. And if you only, robbed a candy store, then you would maybe be sweeping the streets. Like everyone should have a job in jail. We shouldn't be paying for them. They should be giving us value back.
Well, hear me out here, because I've had this idea. It's a very libertarian-esque sort of idea, free market approach to incarceration, and it was the idea that if you've committed a trespass against a person, committed a crime, damaged their property, something like that, then that money is owed to the victim, not to the state. It's not owed to the state. So what the state should run is a correctional facility that helps pay back the debt. So you're incarcerated, you're in prison, but you'll have, several options of what kind of job you'd like to do while you're in prison to pay back your debt. And once the debt's paid back, then you're off you go.
Yeah, I think say you have a widget factory, or it's cleaning something or whatever, and say somebody does $100,000 of damage, and say their sentence is 10 years. Well, if they work really hard at whatever job they're doing and they make $100,000 in 9 years, then maybe they can get their sentence reduced a little bit, maybe half a year. But if they get to 10 years and they still owe $10,000, they don't get to get out. They have to keep working until they pay off their debt as well as their sentence. It should be both. That way incentivizes them to work hard to pay back, the widow or the whoever in the situation. We can't just have them sitting there while we pay and they're sitting there working out or playing Xbox or whatever they're doing in jail.
Working out and collaborating with better criminals, learning how to more skills. That's not what we want. We don't want them being better criminals when they get out. And when it comes to illegal aliens, I love the way the United States is going at their approach right now. A pretty zero tolerance, and they're not just rounding up anybody who doesn't have status. They're going after primarily people who have committed a crime in the United States who they believe to not have status. And because there's so many apprehensions, they need a facility to process them. So they've come up with a new facility, and I love the nickname. Here's Carolyn Levitt talking about this new facility.
On a scheduling note, tomorrow, President Trump will travel to the great state of Florida to attend the opening of a new illegal alien detention center located at Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport, alongside Secretary Kristi Noem, Governor Ron DeSantis, Congressman Byron Donalds, and other state and local leaders. We hope to see many of you there. The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alphabet. There's only one road in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens. This is an efficient and low-cost way to help carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. We are truly coming off a historic week of President Trump racking up win after win on behalf of the American people.
Yes, absolutely. So here's an image of the facility.
That's wild.
The facility. So it has a landing strip. Yeah.
Like you literally can't get out without sacrificing. You wouldn't make it out of there.
This is probably not an actual photograph. This is probably like a Grok AI image. But
I've seen the facility. It's actually similar to that. It's a long airstrip with I think there's more of those buildings though.
So this is the inside of the facility. So they're talking about 5,000 beds at this place. And now these people who are apprehended, they're not going to spend a large amount of time at this facility because they're hoping to deport millions of people potentially.
Yeah, just to get their hearings.
Yeah, so it's like 5,000 people, and then an individual might be on that bed for a week or two, that kind of thing at the most, so that they can process them and get them back to their families, wherever it was that they came from. Now, I love this though, because this was actually the Homeland Security's Twitter handle that posted this coming soon. Oh man, this is the world we live in now. Like it's just everything's humor now.
Big Daddy's home.
Big Daddy.
You see, the Liberals tried to like hijack that and use that themselves.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
as like a negative thing?
And no, they're trying to call Carney Big Daddy. Evan Solomon, all those guys, like, dude, that's not working. Like, Carney's losing. He's losing on a daily basis. Little Daddy at most.
Oh man, that cracks me up. That cracks me up. Little Daddy. Yeah, Little Daddy. They didn't Marco Mendocino have some stupid shirt with him, and it said like elbows up, and I thought that was a Joe Biden shirt at first. It was that. I didn't know what it was on first glance. But okay, I'm curious. What are your predictions? Because like you've been following this obviously for as long as I've been following this, or even longer perhaps. You've laid it out on the Moose chart. The Moose chart's incredible, by the way. So anyone who hasn't seen the channel Moose on the Loose, you bring it up all the time.
Yeah.
And you've plotted everything out. And it's such a great way to organize yourself.
There's still a lot more to plot, actually.
Oh, I'm sure.
Brookfield has so many companies. It's like it's a full-time job just researching and bringing that stuff in. Is so much. They buy companies on basically a weekly basis.
I just commend you for your organization skills. I mean, it's just fantastic, and you've made it in such a way that you can visually show your audience what's going on there.
I was losing track. That's why I was like, okay, I need to map this out because I can't figure out, and I know there's connections here, and then you start to see them all, and like I was like, oh, that's interesting.
So, what are your predictions? Like, there are a lot of predictions on what's going to happen politically in Canada. I've even said after this election, I think they're going to try to hold on to power as long as they possibly can, even if they can get the whole 4 years out of it. What are your thoughts?
I think Carney needs to like knock one out of the park here in the next 3 months, or people are going to be like, oh, he's not the guy we thought he was. Because people already saw him lying, and you just see his lies where he's like, oh, we have the most semiconductors, whatever, exported to America, and it's like not true. And then you start
like that's really obviously not true.
Yeah. So once you start seeing these lies and people are like, oh, actually, this guy does lie a lot, and you start to get that seed planted, people are still hopeful right now, which is why you see the polling numbers basically holding. But if he doesn't get one out of the park here, because people elected him to deal with Trump, like that is the only reason he got elected, because
it's concession after concession. It's bad.
They think a banker can handle this guy. Well, so if he doesn't handle the situation, people are going to start to think, Pierre gets in the House. So the 18th, the by-election. So he'll be back in there by September 1st. He'll be a week later, basically the 25th of August, he'll be back in the House. I mean, it won't be in session, but he could go in the House. So, assuming he's going to win, obviously he's going to win. There's a panel on CBC talking about this, I believe, today, and they're just saying basically by how much is the question.
they're trying to like lay it out that if he doesn't get as much as Damien Couric, then how does it look on his image and all this kind of stuff. But
well, you don't think Maxime Bernier is going to win? He's running in the riding.
He decided to take a flight up from Florida and
yeah, apparently.
I mean,
sorry, I had to throw that. It's not serious. I'm not serious at all.
Yeah. I mean, if this guy seriously wanted to run, like, push his party, he should be, campaigning and doing stuff year round and not, be off in Florida for most of his time.
Well, and not only challenge the conservatives and conservative leaning ridings. Like, why wouldn't he go to like an NDP riding or a Liberal riding and run candidates?
He doesn't even criticize the NDP or the Liberals. He only criticizes Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. So,
yeah, that's why a lot of people feel that it's just a revenge tour for getting kicked out of the party.
Yeah, he's not a serious. If he wanted to be taken serious, he needs to act serious, and people can see he's not serious. He shows up 2 weeks before the election and says, "Oh, vote PPC." It's like, you got to be doing this year round and show you're in Canada doing it. You're a Canadian. He's just as Canadian as like Mark Carney. These guys came from America, basically. I mean,
yeah, no kidding.
Born in America, but Mark Carney was chosen by Xi Jinping as a U.S. business leader to go do business in China, with China. So he was there. What was this, back in 2024? He was there with like 15 of them. He was a U.S. business leader there representing America.
Unreal.
So he's the equivalent of Maxime Bernier here. Just, comes from his villa or whatever in Florida and shows up and keeps wanting to make his $100,000 a year, this party that he doesn't show up to do anything for.
It's an excellent little thing he's got going for him. But so for Pierre, obviously he's going to take the seat. Like it's pretty obvious he's going to take the seat. But what do you think about the sentiment in Alberta? Because essentially Pierre, during the last election, he had no concessions for Alberta, and there are some serious concerns. And because of that, it's grown a lot of sentiment that, well, it can't be helped. Like, the federal side of Canada wants nothing that Alberta's population is very concerned about. I mean, we're talking like, the transfer payments, sovereignty, being able to trade their products with the United States freely without the federal government interfering, that kind of stuff. It's a huge issue for them. And Pierre wasn't even on the table with any of that stuff.
Well, yeah, the equalization payments are incredibly unfair, especially mostly with Quebec, because they can generate all the money, the equal amount or a similar amount, but they don't want to. They just hide behind their ideology. Mm-hmm. So that's the real problem. We should be cutting that off and be like, if you want to be prosperous, do it yourself, not have Alberta pay for it. And if they really wanted to, then take the rest of that money that went to Quebec and put it to the rest of the provinces to build them up versus, the freeloader Quebec, right? That's the truth of it. But I mean, I like that Pierre's come out recently and like really said the quiet part out loud with immigration, talking about negative immigration to get our country back on track, because that's what we're going to need. We're going to need low immigration levels to actually catch up. This is actually what I launched my channel on, was talking about real estate. And you can't have millions of people coming in and you build 250,000 houses and expect the shortage to get better. It's just going to get worse and worse every year.
And what's crazy to me is, like, I've always seen it as this weird push-pull scenario. So you have the prices are way too high, and the bubble needs to pop, but the government just keeps bringing in people and it creates this artificial demand. But at the same time, we have like the highest inventories that we've seen since the 90s in the major cities in Canada. Toronto, huge amounts of inventory.
That's crazy.
Vancouver, same thing. I have a friend who works in real estate. He's not a realtor, but he gets to hear them all the time. He overheard a realtor in Vancouver begging someone to keep their place off the market. And he's heard them speaking amongst themselves, really freaking out about this and saying, don't let anybody know that we're freaking out about this, right? Because it's bad. But so obviously the politicians don't want the prices of housing to come down, because that's a big hit to the equity of people who own these homes or have huge loans against them.
Like Gregor Robertson, the housing minister.
What a dude. What a doofus, man. What an absolute
this guy
doofus.
has at least three multi-million-dollar properties. He's got one right on the beach in Tofino. It's, he's got another one downtown Vancouver, another one up at, what was it, Harrison?
By the hot springs.
Yeah, I think it was up there. Yeah, it's just outside of Vancouver there. So, and that one's like multi-acre property. So you can't have that guy as the housing minister. Obviously, he doesn't want the price to come down.
No, he doesn't want the price to come down. But if the prices come down, then it could. I mean, it's such a huge portion of our GDP now that it would be detrimental to the country as a whole. Like, we've let it get to that point. We've kicked the can so far down the road that now we're in economic crisis territory. And because of that, people are saying, forget it, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
like, I'm just out of here. And Better Dwelling, which is a great publication for real estate news, they're saying most Canadians permanently leaving or fleeing Ontario and BC. These are like the two top provinces for people who are saying, forget it, I'm out. We're out. We're going to better, brighter pastures, whether it's United States or elsewhere.
I mean, even seeing Chinese money. So I used to be married to a Chinese woman, and she had a notary office, and I worked with her in the office. I did the trust accounting, and we ran about $10 to $12 million worth of real estate through the office every month. And you would get, because she spoke Chinese, English, and Mandarin, we were able to, and I knew how to rank websites and stuff. I picked the perfect location, just blew up the business, took all the business from that area. And we would get these rich businessmen from Shanghai just show up. They wouldn't even come themselves. They would send someone with power of attorney, like one of their minions, to come buy houses in Canada. And they would show up for a weekend and buy 6 houses. They would come to our office, which was not in West Van. We were far from West Van, but they'd go to West Van, where that's the British properties. They're all very, very expensive, multi-million-dollar properties. Back then, they were like, I don't know, $5 to $8 million. Now they're $20+ million. And they would show up for a weekend. Not even the guy is his minion to come out and buy these houses, buy 6 of them in 1 or 2 days, and then just fly back. And then they just leave them dormant, because what they're trying to do is get their money out of China. And the only way they can do that is through the casinos. And since Macau is the only place, it's not technically, it's part of China, but it's not. So it's the only place where they can have gambling. They buy casino packages, and they'll spend like $1 million or $10 million, and then they get free hotel and all this kind of stuff. They gamble some chips, they cash it out into another currency, then they stick that in like HSBC or another bank in America or Canada, and then they buy real estate to get their money away from the Chinese government. And so it was, they didn't care if they weren't making money off of the rentals. They didn't want to rent it. They just wanted to get the money out of China. And the government allowed this. They just allow them to come in and just, and you saw it happen. There's nothing you could do about it. Now, if you're on, the side of a notary or a lawyer, well, then you're making money off that. But you can see you're like slowly helping destroy the city and essentially the country. It's because you see all this money coming in. Canadians don't make that kind of money. If you look at the amount of millionaires we have in our country compared to China or India, mostly China though, they have, you're talking 1.6 billion people, I think, for India, 1.3 for China, and we're 40 million. We can't compete. How many Canadians can buy houses where they're, most Canadians not making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year unless you're a CEO. So you get bidding wars. It was just crazy in places where there's no business being a bidding war. It'd have a house that should be worth $300,000 getting bid up to $700,000. I went to a couple of showings where there was like 15 groups that showed up, and I was the only white person there. And it was just, there's not a single word of English spoken, because they're literally off the plane. Let's buy 6 or 5 or 8 houses or whatever, and then back on the plane. Like, how do you compete with that? So they have put, they did eventually put in a ban or a temporary ban, but it's only in city centers. You can still go buy farmland and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, because that's what we need them to be doing.
Yeah, like
buying up all our farmland.
Yeah,
that's that was right.
So I've been like, I keep saying it. We should putting a ban on. It should be reciprocal to the country. So if we can't go to China and buy land or property,
absolutely,
then they shouldn't. And say, for example, like Thailand, we can go there and buy a condo. We can't own land, and the condo has to be in a building that's at least 50% owned by Thai people. So
and that should be across the board, though. Like if you want to sell widgets over here, we should our companies should be able to go into your demographics in your country and sell widgets there. And if that's not allowed, everything across the board. If they can't open up to us, well, sorry, we're not opening up to you. And that's just fair. I think that's just absolutely fair.
Yeah. It's not fair having, people coming and buy up all our stuff and Canadians can't compete.
That's exactly it. I mean, David, I could talk to you about this all night long, but we're getting to the Q&A section of this one. So everyone that's tuned in for this and you're watching this after the fact and you're not watching this live, this is where we go into the Q&A section of the live stream. For you guys watching it recorded, great having you here. Thanks for tuning into that. Make sure you check this out on Wednesdays live. It's usually Marty, but this time it's David from Moose on the Loose. David, tell people where they can find you, all the different places.
Marty Up North on
yeah.
on all the platforms.
On all the platforms.
Yeah, Moose on the Loose is, I'm mostly on YouTube, but I'm on X as well.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.